The truck driver involved in the deadly Humboldt Broncos bus crash has been released after a brief court appearance. Jaskirat Singh Sadhu faces 29 separate charges of dangerous driving. The CBC's Olivia Stefanovic has the details.
Jaskirat Singh Sadhu arrived at a Saskatchewan courthouse today, surrounded by a heavy RCMP presence. The 29-year-old is facing 16 counts of dangerous operation of a motor vehicle causing death and 13 counts of dangerous operation of a motor vehicle causing bodily injury. That's one criminal offense for each person who was on the Humboldt Broncos bus when it collided with Sadhu's truck in April. Sadhu appeared composed before the court, but seemed a bit tired and became watery-eyed as a judge read out his conditions. He's being released for $1,000. He cannot operate a motor vehicle, and he has to surrender his passport. Some family members of Humboldt Broncos players were in the courtroom today to see Sadhu in person.
I think I caught his eye once, and in case this goes to a plea bargain, at least he can put my face to it.
Scott Thomas lost his 18-year-old son, Evan, in the crash. He says he felt pulled to be here today to witness the beginning of these legal proceedings in person. Sadhu is headed back to Calgary. He previously spoke to CBC by phone. He says he has a lot of support from his family and is receiving counseling. He's expected back in court next month. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Melford, Saskatchewan.
When the charges were announced Friday and Singh was named, many went to social media to try to find out a little more about him. And in this case, a different man with the same name saw quite a bit of backlash online. The man who shares a name with the accused made a post to try and explain the mistaken identity, but many people did not get the message. Alec Cross is a professor of educational technology and media at the University of Regina. Thank you so much for joining me today. Why do you think this online backlash and almost mob mentality is so much more prevalent nowadays?
Well, if you think about the number of users on Twitter and Facebook, of course, it's become very globalized, and there are multiple identities. I actually did a quick Facebook search of the same name, and there are hundreds of people listed under the same name. So as we become more and more global and we become more and more networked, this is much more likely to happen. And people, of course, react very quickly when they're emotional, when they want to say something online, and they may not do the research. And that's unfortunately very common, but very dangerous in cases like this.
What are some of the risks that people who share a name with someone who's making news are facing?
Well, you can look at cases like during the Boston bombing, for instance. There was a gentleman by the name of Sunil who was misrecognized, I guess, in this case. And of course, he was bombarded by calls. His family, he was missing at the time. His family was bombarded with calls and threats and so on. And everyone thought that he had played some part in this particular crime. And it just becomes very, very difficult for the people involved in this, whether it's family members or the individuals in charge. And of course, ultimately, people can do much more damaging or even physically damaging things where they can actually find a person's information, where they live. And so this mob mentality, although it plays out online in certain ways, can be very dangerous, especially if it's expressed through physical threats.
What do you think people should do to sort of protect themselves from online backlash if they do find themselves in this sort of situation?
Well, one of the things we do at the faculty, we really focus, one of the things I certainly do is focus on my students, on their online profiles. So understanding that they can maintain and own their identity online. So getting a firm grasp of social media, making sure that your identity is out there, that your information is out there. So these types of miscalculations or misrepresentations can be thwarted, I guess, at an earlier stage. So making sure that you're out there, owning your identity is a big piece of this. And of course, from a respondent type perspective, when you see something online that infuriates you, make sure that you have the research. Even, you know, it's when things are very emotional, you have a tendency to put something out there that perhaps can be damaging to someone else. And of course, this is an extreme case, and it can be very hurtful to those involved.
Think before you type. Thank you so much for this today.
Thanks.
Meanwhile, the parents of one of the teens killed in the Humboldt Broncos crash are taking legal action. A civil lawsuit on behalf of the Harold family has been filed at Regina's Court of Queen's Bench. The CBC's Kendall Latimer has gone through the document and joins me now. Kendall, what can you tell us about this suit?
The people behind this lawsuit are Russell and Raylene Harold. They are the parents of Adam Harold. He was just 16 years old when he was killed on April 6th in the collision. They filed a lawsuit against the driver of the semi, alleging negligence on his behalf, claiming many things, including that he failed to stop at a stop sign. The trucking company and the maker of the bus are also listed as defendants in this case.
Kendall, you mentioned that Adam was just 16. What else do we know about the young hockey player?
In the claim, Adam's parents paint a picture of a young man who loved to hunt, to garden, and to hang out at the family cabin. He was a teen who could have one day taken over the family farm. The claim also tells the story of what might have been a promising hockey career. He was the youngest member of the Broncos. In 2017, he was named captain of the Regina Pat Canadians team. The year before that, he was drafted 34th overall by the PA Raiders. His parents believe he would have made it to the NHL. They say that they too have suffered extreme pain since the crash. They are dealing with anger, loneliness, sadness, and worry, and they say they have lost significant enjoyment in life.
So, Kendall, what are the Heralds hoping to get out of this civil lawsuit?
There are many things. It asks for an unspecified amount of damages, as well as court orders given by a judge at the Court of Queen's Bench. For example, they want a declaration that the intersection where the crash happened is unsafe, as it currently is, that the sight lines at the intersection aren't safe for cars on Highway 35, that the roof of the bus wasn't designed to stay on the bus in an accident. They also want a declaration that all semi-drivers ought to pass strict safety tests before they can haul 2 Super B trailers in the province. And they want all buses carrying sports teams in the province equipped with shoulder harness seatbelts. They say the bus carrying their son and the rest of the Broncos was not equipped with these seatbelts, but it should have been. Several of the people on the bus were ejected from the vehicle during the crash.
All right, so a lot of things in this claim. What happens next, Kendall?
Well, a statement of defense has not been filed. That's as of Tuesday afternoon, but the defendants have between 20 to 40 days to file one, depending on where they were served. As for the other parents today, Scott Thomas, another parent of one of the Humboldt Broncos, spoke about the Herald lawsuit. He says there have been discussions within his own family about civil legal action, but also among other parents too. There were 29 people on the bus. Thomas says they are all looking for accountability. Christy?
All right, thank you so much for this today, Kendall. The CBC's Kendall Latimer reporting in our Regina studio tonight. Well, as Kendall mentioned, the Harold family lawsuit doesn't just name the driver Sadhu as a defendant, it also names the company that made the bus the Broncos team was riding in. One Saskatoon lawyer who's watching the case says he wasn't expecting that.
Yep, I was surprised to see that. I mean, if one can factually make the argument that the construction of the bus made the situation worse and was a proximate cause of death or the seriousness of the injury, and economic loss resulted, that's a possible action.
Now, none of the allegations in the claim have been proven in court, and Watson says he doesn't expect the civil suit to move forward until Sadhu's criminal charges are addressed. While there have been calls for changes in the way semi-trailer drivers are trained in Saskatchewan, the government of Alberta announced some new regulations aimed at improving commercial driver training. The semi involved in the Broncos crash belonged to Calgary-based Adestiol Trucking Limited. Although plans have been in the works to improve safety on Alberta roads, officials say the crash showed an urgent need for change on provincial highways. New rules include mandatory entry-level training for commercial drivers, pre-entry requirements for new commercial carriers, and a newly modified road test model for all driver's license classes. The new rules are expected to come into effect in Alberta in January of 2019.